My grandpa told me my character was my greatest asset. My dad gave that asset a price tag and sold it for parts. I thought the worst had happened, that I'd lost my family and my future. But that wasn't the worst. The worst came a few weeks later. My mom gave my brother the entire inheritance from Grandpa. Just like that. The family business, the lake house. Every penny of his fortune, all of it gone in a single signature. I stood there, watching her do it. And for a second, I thought my heart had stopped beating. Has your family ever betrayed you in a way you never saw coming? Have you ever felt like you were just a footnote in your own story, while everyone else got the main role? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever had to fight to prove your own worth, subscribe, because this story isn't just about what they took. It's about what I'm going to get back. This is for anyone who's ever had to pick themselves up off the floor and rebuild their life from scratch. I was 28 when my grandpa passed. His name was Edward. The family business was a well-known chain of restaurants called the Green Leaf. He started it from a single food cart and built it into an empire. I spent my whole life by his side. I learned every secret recipe, every business strategy, every lesson about integrity and hard work. I was supposed to be the one to inherit it, to carry on his legacy. It was an unspoken promise that hung in the air every time we worked together. But my dad passed away when I was young, and my mom, Victoria, never really saw me. She saw Caleb, my younger brother. He was the golden child, the one she paraded around at every social event. While I was working 16-hour days with my grandpa, Caleb was living off my parents' credit cards, charming his way through life. He never earned a single thing. But to my mom, he was the future. He was the legacy she wanted to show the world. And in one brutal moment, she made sure everyone knew it. My mom gave my brother the entire inheritance from Grandpa. And in her eyes, I was nobody. That night, after the lawyers left and the family scattered, I found myself in my tiny, empty apartment in Seattle. The rain was coming down in sheets, just like it always does. I sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes of my old life, and tried to make sense of what had happened. I wasn't just grieving for my grandpa anymore. I was grieving for the life I had planned, for the family I thought I had, and for the person I thought I was. The future I had worked so hard for was gone, just like that. But I didn't know then that the real story, the one that would change everything, was just beginning. My grandpa always said that the truth will find you when you least expect it. He said that honor is a currency no one can steal. And he was right. My mom gave my brother the entire inheritance from Grandpa. But she couldn't take my pride. And she couldn't take what was coming next. This was the end of one story. But it was the start of a completely new one. A story about fighting for what's right, even when it feels like the whole world is against you. But the story didn't start with my grandpa's will. It started way before that. It started in a childhood home that always felt a little too cold, a little too quiet. I was born 3 years before my brother, Caleb. We shared the same last name, the same blood. But from the very beginning, we were worlds apart. I was the kid who loved books and spent weekends at the restaurant with my grandpa, learning to knead dough and chop vegetables. Caleb was the one who charmed everyone, who could talk his way out of anything. Even when we were just little kids, he was the star of the show. I remember my 8th birthday. I wanted a specific Lego spaceship set. I had been talking about it for months. The morning of my birthday, I ran downstairs, but there was no spaceship. Instead, there was a small box containing a book about famous engineers. It was a nice gift, I guess, but it wasn't what I wanted. Later that day, Caleb, who wasn't even there for the morning celebration, walked in holding the Lego spaceship set. He said, "Mom said I could get it because I told her I wanted to build it with you." That was a lie. He didn't want to build it with me, and he never did. He just took it and hid it under his bed. My mom, Victoria, never saw these things. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care. She was obsessed with the idea of a perfect, polished family. To her, Caleb was the embodiment of that perfection. He was handsome, charismatic, and had a knack for saying the right thing at the right time. He was the one she'd show off to her friends, the one she'd boast about, and I was just the quiet one who was good at school. I was the one who was supposed to be a good example, a quiet shadow to my brother's spotlight. My identity was never about who I was, but about how I fit into the backdrop of Caleb's life. As we got older, the subtle favoritism turned into blatant inequality. When I wanted to go to culinary school, my mom said it was a foolish dream. She said I should focus on a real career, something that would earn a respectable salary. But when Caleb told her he wanted to study art history, a subject that had no real career path, she bought him a brand new car and told him he was a genius. It was like everything I did, everything I wanted, was constantly devalued. I was the one who cleaned up after Caleb's messes. I was the one who had to lie to my grandpa about why Caleb never showed up for work at the restaurant. I was the one who had to act like everything was fine, while inside, my heart was breaking. My grandpa saw it, though. He saw the way she treated us differently. He saw the way I sacrificed my own time and energy for the family, and he saw the way Caleb just took everything without a second thought. My grandpa's legacy wasn't just the restaurants. It was his unwavering belief in honesty and hard work. And he made me promise him that no matter what, I would never compromise on those values. I always wondered why he made me swear to it so often. Now, looking back, I think he knew what was coming. He knew that one day his family would put a price on his legacy, and I would be left to either fight for it or watch it all burn. The truth is, my mom gave my brother the entire inheritance from Grandpa because she'd always given him everything: the house, the money, the attention, even the love. I was never a son to her. I was just a placeholder, an afterthought. And the hardest part, it wasn't a shock. It was a familiar ache, one that I had been living with my whole life. The inheritance was just the final crushing blow, but I didn't know then that this was all just a setup, a twisted stage for a battle I was born to fight. If you've ever felt like your entire life was just a lie, and that you were just a supporting character in someone else's story, comment yes down below. I want to know I'm not alone in this. As Caleb was busy being the golden child, I was the one working. I spent my teenage years and early 20s at the restaurant. Not because I was forced, but because I wanted to. I loved it. I loved the controlled chaos of the kitchen, the smell of sizzling onions, the way my grandpa's face would light up when a customer praised his chicken wings. I learned the business from the ground up, starting with cleaning tables and working my way to the grill. While Caleb was at some art gala in New York, I was in the back office with my grandpa, learning about supply chains and profit margins. It was a grind, but it was my passion. I sacrificed everything for that place. I missed my high school graduation because a new shipment of equipment came in and my grandpa needed help setting it up. I skipped prom to cover for a sick line cook. While my friends were living a normal life, I was at the Greenleaf, pouring my heart into something I believed would one day be mine. I never complained. I never asked for recognition. I thought my hard work was its own reward. But my family saw it differently. They saw my dedication as an expectation, not a choice. They saw my passion as a duty, not a gift. I remember one time, my mom threw a huge party for Caleb's 21st birthday. She rented out a lavish space downtown, hired a band, and flew in all his friends from college. She spent thousands of dollars, money that could have gone into expanding the business. I was at the restaurant, covering a shift because one of the cooks quit without notice. I called her to wish Caleb a happy birthday, and she sounded annoyed. "Ben, can't this wait?" she said. "We're celebrating. I have to go." She hung up. I remember just standing there, holding the phone, listening to the dial tone. I could hear the music and the laughter in the background, a world away from the quiet kitchen where I was standing. That night, I cried into a bowl of half-finished chicken wings. It was the first time I truly felt invisible. The sacrifices kept piling up. When my grandpa was diagnosed with an illness that left him frail, I was the one who moved in with him. I was the one who made sure he ate, who helped him get out of bed, who took him to his doctor's appointments. Caleb visited once, for a grand total of 15 minutes, before he had to rush off to a very important meeting. My mom came by a couple of times a week, but she always seemed distracted, always on her phone, as if she was just checking off a box. I saw the look on my grandpa's face every time they left. It was a look of disappointment, a deep sadness that he tried to hide from me. But I saw it. I saw the way his heart broke a little more each time they abandoned him. I thought my grandpa's illness would bring us all together. I thought maybe, just maybe, my mom would see how much I cared, how much I was willing to give up for our family. I thought she would finally see my worth. I thought the least I could do was be there for him, for the man who had taught me everything. He was the one person who truly believed in me. I wanted to show them all that I was the one who deserved to carry on his legacy. I had to prove that I was the right choice. But I didn't know that my sacrifices would be the very thing that made them want to get rid of me. I didn't know that every single act of selflessness, every single moment of dedication, was a quiet threat to their world. My grandpa's illness wasn't just a tragedy for him. It was a catalyst for the final, heartbreaking betrayal that was coming. It was all a perfect, sick setup, and I was about to walk right into it. The worst was yet to come. I had no idea that all my hard work, all my loyalty, was about to be weaponized against me. I was about to learn that you can't build a strong foundation on a family that's already broken. After a lifetime of sacrificing for my family, I thought I'd finally earned my place. But as my grandpa's illness got worse, I saw the truth. My mother and my brother didn't see me as an equal. They saw me as a convenience. I was the one who could be counted on, the one who would show up, no matter what. But they never saw me as a son or a brother, just a reliable tool they could use when they needed me. A few weeks before my grandpa passed, my mom called me. Her voice was uncharacteristically gentle, almost sweet. "Ben," she said, "your grandpa's not doing well. We need to have a serious talk about his legacy. Can you come to the house on Saturday?" I remember feeling a surge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she was finally going to acknowledge my years of hard work. Maybe she was going to talk about the future of the green leaf and how I would be part of it. I said yes without a second thought. I arrived at the house on Saturday, dressed in a suit, feeling a mix of anxiety and excitement. But as I walked in, my heart sank. The house was filled with people. My mom was in a beautiful dress, talking to some of her wealthy friends. My brother, Caleb, was in the center of the room, laughing and telling a story. It wasn't a family meeting. It was a party. My mom saw me and her face changed, a quick flash of annoyance before she put on her social smile. "Oh, Ben," she said. "You're here. Good. We're celebrating Caleb's new partnership with a luxury hotel chain." I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. My mom and my brother hadn't called me to talk about my grandpa's legacy. They had called me to humiliate me. I stood there, a quiet, forgotten figure in the corner of the room, watching them celebrate. I saw Caleb raise a glass, his eyes meeting mine for a split second before he looked away, a smug smirk playing on his lips. "To new beginnings," he said, his voice loud and clear, "and to taking our family's legacy to the next level." The room erupted in applause, but I just felt a chill run down my spine. Later, as the party started to wind down, I cornered my mom. "Mom," I said, my voice trembling. "What was that? I thought we were going to talk about Grandpa in the restaurant." She sighed, as if I was being difficult. "Ben, there's nothing to talk about. Your grandpa and I had everything sorted out. You've been so good at keeping the restaurants running, and you can keep doing that. We'll hire someone to manage the business, and you can just keep working in the kitchen. That's what you've always wanted, isn't it?" I was speechless. She didn't see my passion. She saw my labor. She didn't see my dreams. She saw a convenient way to keep the business running while she and my brother reaped the rewards. I looked at her, searching for some sign of the mother who once held my hand, who once told me she was proud of me. But all I saw was a cold, calculating stranger. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that I wasn't just a hired hand, that the green leaf was a part of me, that I had poured my blood and sweat into every single dish. But I couldn't. The words just wouldn't come out. I just turned and walked away. I left the party, feeling like my entire life was a lie. I walked out of that house, leaving behind the family I thought I had, and the home I once loved. I thought that was the end of it. The worst was over. But I was so wrong. What happened next changed everything. What happened next wasn't a slow burn. It was a lightning strike. I left that party, my head spinning, and got into my car. The rain was coming down in a torrent, and I couldn't see a thing. My vision was blurred, not just by the rain, but by tears. I was crying for my grandpa, for the life he built, for the family he left behind. I was crying for myself, for the boy who had always tried to be good enough, and for the man who was now standing in the middle of a life he didn't recognize. The car was a blur of steel and glass, and I just kept driving, not knowing where I was going, not caring where I would end up. I was numb. I felt nothing, and everything, all at once. The world was a mess of bright lights and dark shadows, a perfect reflection of my life. I don't remember hitting the pole. One second I was driving, the next, I was surrounded by a twisted wreck of metal. The world went silent, then a searing pain shot through my leg. The steering wheel had crushed my knee. I couldn't move. I was trapped. It was the darkest moment of my life, trapped in a car, in the pouring rain, alone. I had no one to call, no one to help me. I had given my whole life to my family, and in my darkest moment, they were nowhere to be found. The sound of the rain was deafening, and I just sat there, waiting for the end. I had a phone in my pocket, but I didn't want to call my mom. I didn't want to hear her voice. I just wanted to disappear. I don't know how long I was there. But then I saw a car pull up. A woman got out holding an umbrella, and she ran towards my car. She had an older face, but her eyes were kind. She looked at me, and I saw a mix of horror and pity. "My God," she said, her voice shaking. "Are you all right? I've already called the police." She tried to open my door, but it was stuck. She just stood there in the rain, talking to me, trying to keep me conscious. She told me her name was Clara. She said she was a nurse. She told me a story about her own life, about a time when she was lost and a stranger had helped her. She told me that sometimes, when you're at your lowest, a helping hand appears. The police came, and the paramedics, and they cut me out of the car. I remember the pain, but I also remember the kindness of that woman. She stayed with me the whole time, holding my hand, telling me I was going to be okay. In the hospital, the doctors told me I had a compound fracture. I would need surgery. I would be on crutches for months. I would need physical therapy. My life was a mess. I was in a hospital bed, alone, with a broken leg and a broken heart. I had no family to call, no one to visit me, no one to bring me a cup of coffee. I was a ghost. A few days later, as I was sitting in my hospital bed, staring out the window at the gray Seattle sky, Clara came to visit me. She brought me a magazine and a cup of coffee. She sat with me for hours, and we just talked. We talked about her life, about her son, about her career as a nurse. And then she told me something that changed everything. She told me she was a close friend of my grandpa's. "I've been watching you, Ben," she said, her voice low. "I know everything that happened. I know what your mother did." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a deep sadness. "Your grandpa knew this would happen. He trusted you more than anyone. He made me promise that if anything ever went wrong, I would find you and give you this." She handed me a sealed envelope. It was old and yellowed, and my name was written on it in my grandpa's handwriting. "He said you were the only one he could trust," she said. "He said you were the only one who truly understood his legacy." My heart started to pound. I opened the envelope, and inside, I found two things: a copy of my grandpa's will and a small, leather-bound journal. I looked at the will first. It was meticulously typed, with my grandpa's signature and a notary seal. I started to read, and my hands began to tremble. It said that my grandpa left everything to me, not to my mom, not to my brother, but to me. Everything. The restaurants, the lake house, every single penny he had ever earned. My grandpa had a secret account, a secret will, and a secret plan. The will was a fake. The lawyer, the one who announced that my grandpa had no will, was a liar. My mom, my brother, they were all in on it. I couldn't breathe. I was sitting in a hospital bed, holding a document that proved my family had stolen my life. I looked at Clara, and I saw a deep sadness in her eyes. "They went to great lengths to hide it," she said. "They hired a lawyer who had no ties to your grandpa's firm. They threatened anyone who knew the truth." She looked at me, and I could see the pain in her eyes. "They were scared, Ben. They were scared that you would take what was rightfully yours." I just sat there, stunned. My whole life had been a lie. My mom, my brother, the people I had trusted, the people I had sacrificed for, were all just actors in a twisted play. I opened the journal. It was old and worn, and I could see my grandpa's handwriting on every page. He wrote about his life, about the struggles he faced, about the people he trusted, and then he wrote about me. He wrote about the long nights we spent in the kitchen, about the way I learned every recipe, about the way I cared for him when he was sick. He wrote about his fears, about his doubts, and about his love for me. He wrote about his final wishes, about the legacy he wanted me to carry on. He wrote that he wanted me to be happy, to find my own way, to not let anyone take my dreams away. And then, he wrote about his final wish. He wrote that he wanted me to fight for what was right. He wanted me to take back what was stolen from me, to reclaim my life, and to show my family that they couldn't just throw me away. I closed the journal, and I felt a new sense of purpose. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a warrior. I spent the next few days in the hospital, reading the journal over and over again. I learned about my grandpa's past, about his time in the military, about his struggles with a family who didn't understand him. I learned about his secret accounts, about the people he trusted, and about his final wishes. I learned that he had left a message for me, a message that was meant to be a beacon in the darkness. He knew that one day I would be standing in the middle of a war, and he had given me the weapons I needed to fight. I wasn't alone anymore. I had my grandpa's journal, his will, and a new sense of purpose. I knew that my life was about to change. I knew that I was about to go from a boy who had lost everything to a man who was about to take it all back. The fight was just beginning, and I was ready. That night in the hospital, I couldn't sleep. The pain from my leg was a dull throb, but the fire in my heart was a burning inferno. I spent hours reading my grandpa's journal. I learned that he had seen this coming. He knew my mom and Caleb would try to steal his legacy, and he had spent years preparing for this very moment. He had a contingency plan, a series of secret bank accounts, a hidden will, and a trusted friend who would give me a helping hand when I needed it the most. He had left me a map, and I was finally ready to follow it. The next morning, I called my mom. She answered on the second ring, and her voice was a mix of concern and annoyance. "Ben, where have you been? I heard about the accident. Are you all right? Caleb and I were so worried." I just laughed. "Worried," I said, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. "Worried about what? The hospital bill? Don't worry. Mom, I've got it covered." Her voice changed, a flash of annoyance in her tone. "Ben, what are you talking about? We're a family. We'll take care of you." I just shook my head. "No, you won't," I said. "You've already taken everything you're going to take." And I hung up. I knew I couldn't fight this battle alone. I needed help. I needed someone who wasn't afraid of my mom and Caleb, someone who could see through their lies and their money. I called Clara. She came to the hospital a few hours later, and I handed her my grandpa's will. She read it, and her eyes filled with tears. "He always trusted you," she said. "He always knew you were the right one to take over." She told me about a lawyer, a man named Daniel Morgan. He was a ruthless lawyer, a man who had made a name for himself fighting for the underdog. I called him, and he agreed to meet me at the hospital the next day. He was a cold man, with a sharp mind and an even sharper tongue. He looked at the will, at my grandpa's journal, and he looked at me. "Ben," he said, his voice flat, "this is a good case. But your family has money and power. They'll fight you every step of the way. They'll try to discredit you, to make you look like a greedy son who is just trying to steal his family's fortune." I just looked at him. "Let them," I said. "I'm not afraid. I have the truth on my side. My mom and Caleb tried to reach me. They called me. They texted me. They even showed up at the hospital. But I didn't see them. I had Clara and Daniel to fight my battles for me. Daniel told them that I was in no condition to talk, and that all communication had to go through him. My mom was furious. She called me and left a voicemail, her voice a mix of anger and frustration. "Ben," she said, "what is wrong with you? We're trying to help you, and you're treating us like this. After everything we've done for you." I just laughed. "Everything you've done for me," I said to myself. "You gave me a life of pain and a heart full of lies. That's what you've done for me." The next day, I had my first physical therapy session. The pain in my leg was a deep, searing fire, but I just pushed through it. I wasn't just doing this for myself anymore. I was doing it for my grandpa, for the legacy he left behind, and for the man I was about to become. The first few weeks were hell. I was in constant pain. I couldn't walk without crutches. I had to learn how to do everything all over again. But I had a purpose. I had a mission. My grandpa's journal was my guide. It was filled with a lifetime of wisdom, of stories, of lessons about life and business. He wrote about the time he lost his first restaurant, about the time he had to fire a trusted employee, about the time he had to fight for what was right. He wrote about his mistakes, about his regrets, and about his love for me. It was like he was with me, guiding me, holding my hand, telling me I was going to be okay. I wasn't alone anymore. I had a new family now. I had Clara, who visited me every day, bringing me food, telling me stories and making me laugh. I had Daniel, who was a cold and calculating man, but who was also a brilliant lawyer, a man who was fighting for me, who believed in me, who saw my worth. I finally left the hospital. A month after the accident, I was in a wheelchair, and I was in constant pain, but I was also filled with a new sense of purpose. I went to a small apartment, a place I could afford with the money I had saved from my old job. It was small and empty, but it was mine. It was a new beginning. I started to rebuild my life, one step at a time. I started to work with Daniel, to prepare for the lawsuit, to gather the evidence we needed to win. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready. I was ready to face my family. I was ready to take back what was stolen from me. I was ready to fight for my grandpa's legacy and for the man I was about to become. I was a broken man, but I was also a new man. I was a man who had lost everything, but who was about to get it all back. The war was just beginning, and I was ready to fight. I was ready to win. The first day in court was a blur. My mom looked at me with cold fury, and Caleb just smirked, like this was all some kind of joke. They were so confident, so sure that their lies would hold up, that their money and their power would save them. But they didn't know what I knew. They didn't know about my grandpa's will, about his journal, about the truth that was about to hit them like a freight train. Daniel, my lawyer, was a master. He was cold and calculating, but he was also a genius. He laid out the case, piece by piece, building a mountain of evidence that was impossible to ignore. He talked about my grandpa's legacy, about the love and trust he had for me, about the years I had spent by his side, learning the business. He talked about my dedication, my hard work, my passion. And then he talked about them. He talked about their lies, about their greed, about the way they had betrayed me, about the way they had stolen what was rightfully mine. My mom's lawyer tried to discredit me. He tried to paint me as a greedy, ungrateful son who was just trying to steal his family's fortune. He brought up my past, my unconventional career path, the fact that I had never been to college, that I was just a cook. But Daniel was ready for him. He had documents. He had witnesses. He had my grandpa's journal. He had everything we needed to win. My mom's lawyer was a good one, but he wasn't ready for the truth. He wasn't ready for the emotional toll this would take on my mom, on Caleb, on the family they had built on a foundation of lies. The final day in court was a blur. My mom was a mess. She was crying. She was yelling. She was begging the judge to stop. Caleb was pale, his hands shaking, his smug smile long gone. The judge looked at them, and I saw a mix of pity and disgust in his eyes. He had heard enough. He knew the truth. He looked at me, and he said, "Ben, you have proven your case. Your grandpa's will is valid. You are the rightful heir to his legacy." My heart stopped. I couldn't believe it. I had won. I had fought for what was right, and I had won, but winning wasn't as sweet as I thought it would be. I looked at my mom, and I saw a woman who had lost everything. She had lost her husband. She had lost her son. She had lost her legacy. She had been consumed by her greed, and now she had nothing left. I looked at Caleb, and I saw a boy who had been raised on lies. He had been given everything, but he had nothing. He had no skills, no work ethic, no sense of honor. He had been taught that he could just take what he wanted, that he didn't have to work for it, and now he was about to lose it all. I walked out of the courtroom, a free man. I had won, but I had also lost. I had lost my family. I had lost the people I had loved and trusted, But I had also gained something. I had gained a new family. I had Clara, who was my constant companion, my friend, my mother figure. I had Daniel, who was more than just a lawyer. He was a mentor, a guide, a man who had fought for me, who had believed in me. I had a new sense of purpose, a new sense of honor, a new sense of self. The next day, I went to the Green Leaf. The restaurant was empty, and it felt like a ghost town. My mom had been so consumed by her greed. She had neglected the business. The walls were peeling. The chairs were broken. The tables were dusty. But I wasn't discouraged. I wasn't sad. I was determined. I was ready to rebuild. I spent the next few months working day and night, fixing the place up, hiring new employees, creating new menus. I wasn't just fixing the restaurant. I was fixing my life. I was rebuilding my legacy, one piece at a time. I was a broken man, but I was also a new man. I was a man who had lost everything, but who was about to get it all back. I had a new purpose. I had a new passion. I wasn't just a cook anymore. I was a man who had fought for what was right, who had stood up for what he believed in, who had won. And I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready to face the world. I was ready to face the future. I was ready to build a new life, a new legacy, a new family. I wasn't going to let my mom, or Caleb, or anyone else take my happiness away from me. I had a new family now. I had Clara. I had Daniel. I had my grandpa's journal. I had the truth on my side. I had a new life. I had a new beginning. This story isn't just about me. It's about anyone who's ever been told they weren't good enough. It's about anyone who's ever had to fight to prove their own worth. It's about the power of hope, the power of perseverance, the power of love. If you've ever felt like the world was against you, if you've ever had to fight to prove your own worth, I want you to know that you're not alone. I want you to know that you can do it. You can win. You can get back everything that was stolen from you. You can build a new life, a new legacy, a new family. All you have to do is believe in yourself. So, if my story resonated with you, if it made you feel something, if it made you feel like you're not alone, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to hit that like button. I want you to leave a comment and tell me what you've had to fight for. I want you to share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. And most importantly, I want you to subscribe. This is just the beginning of my journey. I have so many more stories to tell you, so many more lessons to share with you. I'm going to show you how I built my life back from nothing, how I found happiness, how I found love, how I found my own worth. I'm going to show you that you can do it too. So, if you're ready to join me on this journey, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one.